Welcome back. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, and follow me at DirtleMTG on Twitter to keep up to date with the most recent videos and other posts. You can help support this content by hitting like and share, and by checking out the links in the description below. Alright, it's time to dirtle. Welcome back to the Bale. Today we travel with the enigmatic Raven Man. Our manipulations will haunt the minds of Orvar, Vaevictis, and Felisa. I win the die roll and begin the game with a snow swamp after drawing a steel hellkite. Note here, all my swamps are snow. Orvar plays a snow island. Asmadi drops a terramorphic expanse. Felisa has a swamp to the field, and then summons Viscera Seer. I draw another swamp, and drop one. I cast my commander, the Raven Man. Orvar plays an island, and casts Liquid Metal Torque. They activate it, making Raven Man an artifact in addition to its other types until end of turn, which for some reason just scares the crowd out of me. At the end of the turn, Asmadi cracks their expanse for a forest. Over to Asmadi's turn, and they drop a Field of Ruin. Felisa sees a Castle Lochmain into the battlefield. Blade of the Blood Chief is cast, and then equipped to the Seer. I draw Deadly Dispute for the turn, and play another swamp. I cast Waste Not, and follow that with Skull Clamp. Moving to combat, I swing my commander at the Orvar player, dealing 2. Another snow island into play for Orvar, and they activate their torque to make my Waste Not an artifact. They then cast Copy Artifact, and it comes into play as a copy of Waste Not. That might be a problem. Asmadi has a mountain to the field. Radha, Heart of Keld is cast afterward. Felisa plays a Myriad Landscape and passes. My turn sees a visit to the Court of Ambition. I play a swamp and activate my commander. In response, the Orvar player casts Rapid Hybridization on it, and it dies while I gain a Frog Lizard token. The ability from my commander then goes to resolve. I gain some mana, a card, and a token while my opponent doesn't gain the mana, but they gain a card and a token. With my new mana, I cast Idol of Oblivion, and activate it for a card, drawing Gonti. I pass. Orvar casts Clone, and it comes into play as a copy of Radha. Guildless Commons hits the field, and the regular island is returned to Orvar's hand. Asmadi's turn has a Beanstalk Giant go on an adventure, and this adventure finds them a swamp. Shattered Sanctum hits the field for Felisa. Myriad Landscape then gets cracked, and 2 more planes enter the battlefield. My favorite flip card of all time, the Mad Compass, comes to hand for the turn. I drop a swamp, and then cast the Necroglyph. I pass. Back to Orvar, and the Necroglyph triggers for the first time, having them discard a card. This will happen for everyone on every upkeep as long as it stays in play. I gain some mana from the Waste Not, and use it to cast Deadly Dispute, sacrificing my zombie token to do so. I draw 2 cards, them being Shizo the Storehouse and Shriekmaw. Strip Mine enters the battlefield for the Orvar player, and they cast Arcane Signet. Over to Asmadi, and they discard a card. Orvar and I gain a zombie token. Tireless Provisioner is cast. Once in play, they put a Dragonskull Summit to the field. They gain a treasure token thanks to the Provisioner, and then using it, they cast Phyrexian Arena for some extra card draw. The Goyf continues its duties, and I gain some free mana. Felisa plays a Plains after they discard, and then cast Ende, the Dusk Rose. The Blade of the Blood Chief is switched to the new summon, and they pass. To my turn, I discard Steel Hellkite. I then draw Sword of Feast and Famine. I drop Shizo to the battlefield, and then cast Dothi Voidwalker. Using the remaining lands, I recast my commander, and then using my treasure, I equip the Skull Clamp to the Voidwalker. At the end of the turn, I gain a bird token from the Raven Man. To Orvar, and I get to draw from their discard, gaining Hagra Mauling. They cast their commander with some extra mana up, and I'm worried about that development. They pass, and I gain another bird. Asmadi's discard gets me a zombie token, and I activate the Idol of Oblivion after I get the token to draw a card, which is Feed the Swarm. They then draw an extra card and lose 1 life from the arena. Going right to Vitlamok is cast. They pass afterward, and I gain a bird. It's about a murder now. Felisa's turn has me gain a zombie token along with Orvar. The player then casts Austere Command, choosing creatures mana value 3 or less and enchantments to be destroyed. Unfortunately, we lose a player in the blast. The board is wiped, and many counters are added to Ende while I draw 2 cards, those being Unearth and the Archfiend of Ifnir. The Felisa player moves to combat, and swings their now 43/43 lifelinking Ende at the Orvar player. The Orvar player protests, and the Felisa player responds that Orvar can win out of nowhere, being the reason for the attack. The Orvar player blocks with their commander, and they cast Infuse, targeting their Guildless Commons. This triggers their commander, and that makes a copy of the land. which triggers and bounces an island back to their hand. The commander then goes down, and the Ende creature gains 2 more counters, while the Felisa player gains 43 life. To me, an Infuse's delayed trigger happens, drawing the Orvar player a card. I discard Sword of Feast and Famine to the Goyf, and draw a swamp. I play it, and cast the Thematic Compass. Orvar quits the game here, still incensed over the prior attack from the Felisa player. In all fairness, scary commanders are scary, and that's why I don't get to use Feather much. Down to 1 opponent, and I cast Archfiend of Ifnir. I go to end the turn, and Thematic Compass triggers to become the Spires of Orazca. Felisa recast their commander, and move to attacks. They swing a Linda at me, but I spire it away. My turn has me discarding Gaunty, and the Archfiend triggers to deliver 1/1 counters to my opponent's creatures. I draw Wayfarer's Bauble for the turn, and form a plan to wipe away the advantages my remaining opponent has. I cast Hagra Mulling on Linda, and the creature dies, putting a lot of counters on Felisa. This also creates a I didn't count it batch of vampire tokens with lifelink. My opponent and I both say a prayer to the MTGO client not to crash, and I continue my plan. I cast Feed the Swarm to destroy Felisa, losing 4 life to do so. That creature triggers when they die, bringing a batch of uncounted Inkling tokens to the battlefield tapped. Once that resolves, I then cycle an Earth from my hand, and the Archfiend triggers. This finishes wiping the board by getting rid of all the new tokens by giving them a -1/-1 counter. I move to combat, and swing both of my creatures for 10. The Felisa player drops to 73. Back to the Felisa player, who decides to stay in the game a bit, and they discard and then draw. They cast Bloodflow Connoisseur, and they equip it with the Blade of the Blood Chief. To my turn, I discard the Bauble. Archfiend does the thing, and the Connoisseur dies. I draw a War Room and cast Court of Ambition. When it enters the battlefield, I become the Monarch. I move to attacks and swing for 11, dropping my opponent to 62. At the end of the turn, I draw a Palaka Predation. Felisa is recast on the opponent's turn, and Agadim the Undercrypt hits the field. The blade is equipped to Felisa, and they pass. On my turn, I discard War Room, and the Archfiend gets a -1/-1 counter on Felisa. My opponent then loses 6 life thanks to the Core of Ambition because they cannot discard a card. I draw Painful Quandary. I cast Dread Presence after briefly considering the Quandary, and then equip Skull Clamp to the Presence. Into the combat phase, and I swing for 11, dealing the damage and dropping my opponent to 42. At the end of the turn, I draw a Swamp thanks to the hat. Felisa's turn has a Tainted Field to the table. Castle Lochlane is activated to draw them a card, and they lose 1 life. Gideon's Avenger is then cast. The blade is equipped to the new summon, and they pass. Back to me, and I discard Palaka Predation, triggering the Archfiend. This kills Felisa, and they head back to the command zone, while a counter is placed on Gideon's Avenger thanks to the Blade of the Blood Chief, negating the 1/1 counter it will get. The Felisa player then loses 6 life thanks to the court. I draw Dokuchi Silencer, and drop a Swamp. This triggers the Presence, and I deal 2 damage to the Avenger and gain 2 life. To attacks, I swing for 16, dealing the damage and dropping the opponent to 19. In the second main phase, I recast my commander, and at the end of turn, I gain a bird token and draw a Sangromancer. The turn rolls back to Felisa, but unable to find an answer and seeing lethal on the next turn, they surrender the game. Good game to my opponent. Well, I'm not sure what to make of the deck. Some of my opponents didn't stay for the whole game, and the discard seemed effective but somewhat oppressive. The Raven Man, being a turn 2 commander, really plays to the strength of discard needing to be effective early, but the card isn't overwhelming like Tiny Bones or Tergrid. This doesn't immediately paint a target on your head either, which is always a plus. Thanks for tuning in to another casual commander game here on Dirtle Magic. See you next time.